Good evening and welcome to Hot Topics from the Soul. It's another Tuesday. I'm so excited. I have my co-host.
And good Tuesday to you. Terrific Tuesday. Exciting Tuesday.
Well, tonight's show has me charged up. You know why? Because I want to know where the money is. There's
Show
so
me the
much
money.
going on. There's so much going on. People are losing their homes. People are losing their jobs. Businesses are closing. And there's resources in our local communities, but so many people don't know where to go, how to find it, what doors to knock on. So we have two guests that are going to be on tonight to help us with that information. The first guest we have is Bernard Jennings. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
I'm so excited because we finally got you on the show. You're such a busy man.
Yes, I've been busy doing a lot of coming and going. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Yes, and you are the president of Biscayne Gardens Chamber of Commerce.
Yes, the Biscayne Gardens Chamber of Commerce is about 6 years old. It's a newer chamber in Miami-Dade County, Florida. And we service not only the Biscayne Gardens community, which is a community of about 34,000 residents. There's 975 businesses in Biscayne Garden, and there's 13,700 registered voters. But our chamber is different than many chambers where we don't just have a breakfast meeting once a month and you get to hear a guest speaker and then you realize, wait a minute, it's time to go back to work and you have to leave. We actually focus our chamber around events. And since the inception, we've teamed up with a gentleman by the name of Eric Stoller with Champion Mindset Events, where we put together events all around the county so that the different various chamber members can actually have a place to go to network with one another around events rather than around speaking meetings.
Awesome. I'm familiar with Eric. He's a good friend of mine. So I'm glad y'all made that marriage to make things happen because, networking is so important. If you're not able to be in a position to expose your business, so that people can see you, which is what chambers do. They allow you to get the exposure you need to connect with others in your community.
Yeah, the old adage is if you're not networking, you're not working. So we make sure that we try to put on a couple of events a month so that people can get together around public speaking and around the interest that the business community has. In fact, with the COVID-19 onset as of March of last year, it's been very difficult because the whole purpose of uh, flattening the curve is staying apart. So that has hurt many chambers, many business owners, many restaurants, many folks in different industries because we're apart. But we found a way to do some things online and work some programs out so that we can actually still be in the mix and stay alive during this pandemic.
Now, I know that one of the things that the chamber does is help individuals as it relates to jobs. Do you have job postings, etc. there?
Yes, uniquely with our chamber, we have a partnership with Google, the fourth largest tech company in the world. So we are able to create a partnership with them. It's called Grow with Google, where they train us, and the program is their catchphrase is "We train the trainer to train the small business." So they've trained us how to train business persons how to get online with Google to be able to be geo-tracked by Google and know where your business is in any community. And then they've also recently, because of the pandemic, given us a job search platform. So if anybody who's in earshot of this program right now, you can go to Biscayne Gardens Chamber of Commerce.org. It's right there on the screen. And you go to a tab at the far left that says job search. When you get to that job search screen, you have two opportunities. One is to click in and put in your information, your basic name, phone number, and then you can do a job search. You can do a job search by a specific job or field that you like to be in, or in a number of categories of jobs. And then those jobs will pop up right in the screen where you can actually apply online right now to get a job. And these jobs are available all around the world. Some of them have been posted as early as today or 2 days ago or 15 days ago. And it's very recent current information because you can imagine the power of Google. Google has everybody searched. So they've taken the power of Google from around the world and placed it on our website. for the benefit of the community. So we've been very embraced and very appreciative of the relation with Google. The second tab within that job search is if you looking for training. So there's a series of videos that are in place that if you take these 1 hour or 2 hour courses, you can actually print out your own certificate that you took the course and add it to your resume to make you relevant and job ready now. And three or
Wow,
four of
that's
those
powerful.
courses, yes, powerful. 3 or 4 of those courses is an IT tech course, a DX design course, and a a computer networking course where you can take that course and you pay like $49 for it, and it's a course that you do over 6 to 8 months, and then you're ready for a job paying $66,000, $61,000, and $55,000 respectively because of the certification you get from Google on the course. This job is available right now for people if they want one. You may not be the exact job you want sometimes, as they say, but there's definitely employment out there.
Hmm. You know, a lot of people are going through foreclosures because they've
Mm-hmm.
lost their jobs, and you know they don't know what the next step is for them because they've never been in a position like this before. What
Mm-hmm.
help is out there for individuals as it relates to their homes or even renting?
Yeah, well, coincidentally, I happen to be certified by the Florida Supreme Court as a circuit court mediator, and I've been doing it for, let me count, 15, 20 years. And unfortunately, you're correct. Right now, with this pandemic, you have the president's mandate that you can't uh, you can't evict. It's a moratorium. You can't evict. Right now, it's been extended up to March 31st. Prior to that, it was this just January 31st, and prior to that, it was December 31st. They keep extending it, and then in some states, the governor has created a mandate, and then the counties create their own mandate. So here in Florida, uh, the governor has said you can't foreclose, and they're going along with the president's moratorium. But if you're renting or if you're owning a property and you're behind your mortgage, there's relief from the new legislation that's coming down from the CARES Act to allow you to have some funding to address that. In the past, over the last 6 months, the funding was geared towards tenants. So the tenants would have to apply for the funding through their local municipality, local county, and then fill out an application, turn in some forms, and then possibly the landlord, if the landlord agreed not to move forward with foreclosure, then they would get the money. But unfortunately, a lot of tenants, not all, have been dubious in the process. They haven't been cooperative and haven't even filled out the forms on behalf of the landlord. So landlords couldn't get any money. But this new CARES Act that's coming out now, they're going to do some things to address landlords so the landlords can apply for themselves with the tenant's response so that monies can come down. It's not a whole lot of money considering that most folks haven't paid their mortgage in that fall into that category in almost 10, 11 months. And in most instances, they're only going to allow $3,000, $4,000 worth of relief, which is better than nothing, because if you can't put the tenant out and they haven't paid, better to have some money than no money. And
Okay, so explain this to me because I kind of got lost in that as it relates to somebody that's renting. Okay,
mhm,
so if you're renting, there is funding for you, limited funding
limited
that
funding.
the landlord can get paid, but it's only a certain amount of money
Yeah.
that the landlord can get.
What?
And this is nationally. This is not just
Yeah.
here
This is
in Florida.
national.
This
This is
is national.
nationally, right. So President Joe Biden has embraced legislation that has already been in place from the CARES Act, which provided funds in the past to each state. Uh, Florida, Dade County alone has around $60 million. I think Broward County is like 85 million. So each county gets a different distribution. Um, those funds were mainly given to assist the tenants in receiving money to give to their landlord. The problem is that a lot of tenants refuse to cooperate to even apply for the money. So the landlord's stuck. So now moving forward, they've created a venue where the landlord can apply directly. It's not all fully rolled out yet because obviously we're only 7 days into this new life of a presidential a president in the United States. So as the weeks go by, you'll see it roll out that the different counties and the different municipalities will have funds to be able to dole out the money, and they're going to be geared more so towards landlords in this go round. So the landlord will apply, tenants respond, and in my certification as a mediator, I've actually put in a proposal to Miami-Dade County's mayor to do a conciliatory program so that you can have mediation between the landlord and the tenant, so they can come to an agreement about their ability to pay or not, and not just, make up a story that they can't pay when they actually can. Because you have a lot of folks that can't pay and they're not paying just because they don't have to, because they know they can get over it right now. It's unfortunate. But then you have those that really are in a situation where they've had some sort of employment that they have been relieved from their employment because of the COVID-19 and they can't work. So they do need assistance.
Let me ask you this. So with this new rollout of this part of the CARES Act, it puts now the onus on the owner, the landlord, rather than the responsibility being on the person who's renting. So,
right.
With that being said, because I know that we hear things all over the state where, people have been trying to be evicted. There are folks who says that their landlord have tested the law in trying to evict them. What is it with this new layout? What is it to prevent the landlord from possibly, if you would, accepting the money, whatever it is, maybe it's only 3 or 4 months worth, but then still, as it builds up, if we're still here, not still trying to evict that person, or are they totally at the mercy of them keep extending the whole foreclosure and inability to rent to evict people?
Okay, well, so right now with the moratorium, you still can't evict whether you receive assistance from the program or not. And in Dade County specifically, or the state of Florida specifically, in Dade County, if you didn't file your eviction prior to March 9th, 2020, they're not even addressing those because the local mayor has said that they're not going to allow the sheriff's department within the municipality to evict anyway, because there's a concern that where are they going to go? We're in a pandemic. You put someone out their home, you put them in a position where they're susceptible to COVID-19. And if they're going to go someplace to a family members or friends, we don't know what the situation there is. So it's a very, very touchy situation. So as we move forward, though, in the past, if you accepted the money, you agreed not to evict for a period of time. So what the monitoring is for that, I'm not certain what the monitoring is, but moving forward, they are going to probably do the same thing where if you accept some money, you won't evict for a certain period of time. But, it cannot be indefinite, because at the same time, there's going to be this bubble that's going to burst. Because while you're trying to protect the tenant, who's protecting the landlord? Because at some point, the mortgage company is going to move for default, because if you haven't paid the mortgage because you're relying on the tenant's funds to do so, you're falling behind in your mortgage. And if the landlord falls behind the mortgage, he has 3 months to be in arrears, and then he's open for default. What a lot of lenders are doing, like SPS, I think PHH Mortgage, New Res, even Aquin, who's a servicer of mortgage debt, are approaching the property owners on their own, saying, "Hey, here's a forbearance plan. We're not marking you because of the CARES Act. We're not going to mark you late on your mortgage, and your payments are not forgiven, but you don't have to worry about paying it now. We're not going to mark it on your credit, so you're okay." And then some lenders are going ahead and saying, "Hey, we're going to place the amount that's in arrears up until March to the end of your loan, and then you'll begin making a payment at a time certain, like maybe April." And lenders who I've spoken to in regards to homeowners have been doing that. But as far as where they are now for February, March, and April's payment, it's not decided yet. So as time goes on, some lenders will cooperate. But if you have a private investor loan, a hard equity loan where they're not regulated by Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA, or the VA, it's really not going to be an option for them to follow any of that, because private investors don't have to follow that, and either they're going to get paid, or they're going to, as soon as opportunity arises, they're going to evict. And the problem with that in Florida, and I'm sure it is in every other state, some states even worse than Florida, is that the courts are going to be so backed up with evictions, which is usually county court, not circuit court.
Absolutely.
Circuit court is any claim that is $10,000 above on a national level anywhere in the country, and a small claims court or county court is claims that are under $10,000. So landlord-tenant court is a separate court, but landlord-tenant court falls into that same category. So a renter will be in county court with a very large docket, and mortgage holders are going to be in circuit court, but the courts can be tied up. We don't have enough judges that are, elected into office to handle these volumes of cases. It's almost like the foreclosure crisis that we had back when Bernie Madoff made off with the money. Remember how bad that was?
Yeah.
So we had thousands of people, and for several years it took us to get out of that mess. And they created the program called the HAMP program, the homeowners mortgage program, to help homeowners be able to create a watershed program that the banks would go through to bring someone back into good graces with the lender, either through a forbearance agreement, a modification agreement, a short sale, a deed in lieu of foreclosure, or a partial claim. So those things are going to probably open back up under this new administration. Under the previous administration, number 45, they never even talked about it. They never offered those programs. The programs expired after President Obama left office, and they were never entertained again. But a lot of lenders picked up and were still administering their own version of the program following those guidelines because they work. They caused people to come back into the fold and get current with their mortgage so they could service that debt.
Mm-hmm.
Lenders could service the debt.
Awesome. I have Mayor Ken Thurston that's shown up, that's in studio. So Bernard, if you would just hold a moment, we have some more questions for you. Mayor Thurston, how are you?
I am fantastic. Thank you so much for having me on tonight.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're very busy. You're running the city of Lauderhill.
Yes, thank you so much. There are a lot of challenges, and I'm just trying to be certain that I get centered here.
Yeah, I said I need to see you. Tilt the screen.
Okay.
Okay, there we go.
Fantastic. All I need is some expert coaching.
Well, as again, I said, thank you so much. You've had an extensive career and you've been a servant to our city for many, many years. I've had the opportunity of working with you with the Lauderhill Chamber, and then you excelled into being a commissioner and now the mayor. And I know you got your hands full. So much has went on under the previous administration, and we're trying to shuffle forward to see what the end's going to be. So a lot that's going on now in the communities. I don't know if you heard the conversation with Bernard Jennings. He's out of Miami Gardens Chamber, and he was talking about, the resources that they have there. But we have resources in each city. So what people don't realize is that whatever that city is that they live in, that there's resources and help for individuals. People are looking to the president and the vice president to hand them a check, but there's local reserves right there, local resources. Where could they plug into?
Well, you're absolutely right. The federal government passed what they call a CARES Act. They passed money to the state of Florida. State of Florida passed it to the counties, Miami-Dade County and Broward County. And in the case of Broward County, they passed additional dollars to the city so that the city could take care of specific needs that it saw. And some of those needs have been an actual payment of rent for its residents. It has been a payment of mortgage payments. And all one has to do in my city is call City Hall and get the application and fill it out. I know that you've got a very wide audience, and folk could be in other places, but either the city or the county, and it's been this way nationally, they have put programs together to help to assist with mortgage payments, also to assist with paying rent. And in Broward, if you're in an unincorporated area, you automatically would make the application to Broward County. They process your application, and in some cases, they could pay as much as $8,000 in rent or mortgage payment to
Wow.
pull you out of the hole. Also, the city and the county has programs where they help people pay electrical bills and water bills. So they'll help you pay utilities. And it's just a matter of making an application, and you do have to provide some documentation. You can't very well ask the government to pay your rent. You got to prove that you're renting someplace.
Right.
So, or you can't ask them to catch up your light bill without showing that you've got a light bill. So there's some basic documentation that is required. I know in the city of Lauderhill, we still have monies left over to help catch up rent, help keep up mortgage, get your mortgage payment caught up, and we have some dollars left for utility payments. All one has to do is make the application.
Let me ask you this, as it relates to utilities. Let's say someone calls up to pay their utility bill, and they're like, let's say they're months behind, and they call up and say, I know my bill is $300. All I have is $100. Will that employee say to them, well, we have this program available that you may qualify for?
Well, there are a couple of options there. One of the options, and I spoke last night with representatives from Florida Power and Light, they are making arrangements with their customers to stretch out the time with which people can make payments. Secondly, uh, if it's just a matter of getting a few $100s to get caught up on a utility bill, yes, the CARES Act dollars in my city will help people get the extra money that they need to catch up on those utility bills.
Oh, that's awesome. But they won't voluntarily say, hey, we got money, we can help you pay this bill. That you have to actually say, ask, is there resources or is there help for me?
I think that's an excellent question. You have to make the first step. You've got to make the phone call and make the request for the assistance. And if you
Okay.
make the request, the documentation which is needed is really minimal. But making the request is the first step.
That's awesome. And there's a lot of people that are hungry. They haven't been able to get food stamps. And I know my church, the Faith Center, they have Dare to Care that provides food on Saturdays from 8 a.m. to 11, 12, depending on till the resources run out. But how can they find out about other information about where they can get food?
Well, it's just a matter of calling the city of Lauderhill. The city has worked closely with nonprofits and passing out food, and there are at least one every other week where food is distributed there in front of the Lauderhill Mall. And prior to that, it was in the Central Regional Park, but we had to move because they started using the facility for COVID testing and COVID vaccines.
Mhm.
But if one is connected to the web page of the city of Lauderhill, the places where food is distributed is listed there. And I'm sure it's the same with other communities throughout the country, that the web page is generally where it is posted. Right now, food is being passed out twice a month at Joy's Roti in front of the Lottie Hill Mall. No questions asked, no documentation. You drive through with your trunk open, and whatever items they've got, they place in the trunk for you. Now, many cities use those CARES Act dollars to provide gift cards for you to go to a grocery store. Several cities use their money for that. And I think that the county has some dollars left. And stay tuned to Broward County if you're in this area, because I expect them to come out with one more grocery card distribution within the next 2 weeks.
Well, that's awesome.
Well, Mayor, it sounds like the fact that there in Lauderhill that you really have a great coordinated approach inside of this, and it sounds like that the only real barrier is people not reaching out to find the information that is there. And I think it often goes back to what are they hearing the most? Are they hearing how bad things are more so, or they're hearing what's available? Because I would say, I'm here in Palm Beach County, that definitely I've discovered there are many resources that are out there. And there are people that have automatically counted themselves out. Well, I won't be able to do that. But the reality is that it's there. And I've seen people utilize it. The different, local governments and municipalities are doing a great job in getting it out there through whether it's, the social media, whether it's through newspaper, what all of those things there. And what happens, and I think that this is so important, that people have to be motivated enough to take that next step. Motivated enough, sometimes it's a matter of filling out a very simple application. I'll be honest with you, I helped the family inside of this. And what was so amazing about it is the fact it wasn't a long process. I was actually expecting it to be more difficult than what it was, but it was not a long process. They were able to get food, they qualified, they were able to do those things such as that. When it came to food, every other day, there are food distributions that are going on everywhere. And think about it, like you described, people don't even have to get out of their vehicles, literally pop your trunk, open your door, and it's there. But what has to happen is that people have to be willing to, if you would, to help themselves. Don't focus on how bad the pandemic. We know that. That's the reason why we're seeing things like the CARES Act. We're seeing all these other monies that are coming in now. This is not even trying to talk about the deficit, trillions of dollar deficit, because right about now, it's about people living. It's about people surviving. So we're talking about the economy and those things there. So my question to you, and I do have a question, is this. In places like Lauderhill and across the state inside of that, is there anything else that the government can do to get people to recognize that there are resources? Dr. Parker started off by saying there are resources. They're there, but you have to look for them. You have to inquire about them. And then you have to execute the plan to get them.
Well, you absolutely do, and information is key. I know that there are people who will say, I don't do computers, I don't do the internet, but unfortunately, to make it in this world, you've got to be computer literate, you've got to be willing to go online and look at what's available. And you can overcome that by getting a teenager to assist you, or get a teenager. When I've got issues, I'm calling one of my daughters or one of my grandkids. I need some help. So just don't be hesitant to ask for help. And as we go through this pandemic, which is unlike anything that this country has seen in 100 years, since 1819, we had the what was then called the Spanish flu. It's we have to think differently, is the point that I'm making. Today I had a lady who called because she was upset because code enforcement was giving her tickets for parking on the sidewalk. And I said, why are you parking on the sidewalk? We had received complaints that people on walkers and wheelchairs couldn't get up and down the sidewalk because the cars were blocking. Well, and she explained it that she and her husband were home, but then the kid came back home and brought his spouse with him. And so now all of a sudden there were 2 cars in the household. Now there are 5 cars in,
Wow.
in the household. And a couple of them work from home. So they could no longer go in the office. So all of a sudden they don't have an option. And what I stress is don't stick your head in the sand. Don't be an ostrich. The code enforcement officer gave you a citation. Call the code enforcement officer and explain your problem. And the code enforcement officer was a sensitive person and says, this is what you need to do. Instead of having grass, why don't you put rocks over on the side, and then you're parking the car on the rocks. So therefore, it's no longer a code violation. But
Wow.
but you can't take the ticket and just say that those code enforcement officers or the mayor is an unfair and nasty person. Address the issue. We have to tackle the problem. We all have the same issues. We were so accustomed to going to church, and that was our opportunity to socialize. Well,
Absolutely.
it's not so easy anymore. So we have to reach out. We have to call people on the telephone. We have to check on them as part of our socialization. So the point that I'm stressing is that we have to do things in a different way because we're in a different time. And if we try things that to do them differently, it will work out, and we're going to make it through these times. Yeah, it may take a while before we get out of it, but if we work together and try different things, it's going to work out for us.
Okay, could you explain also to the listeners the importance of the census and why they need to vote for local government?
Well, without a doubt, the way that the federal government divvies out money is based upon the census. The census count is now over based upon the administration of 45. But
Right.
I could see a scenario where there could be a recount based upon the poor job that was done under the last administration. But the census is so important to us because that is how the federal government makes the determination of how dollars are going to be passed out in a community. The highways that get built are based upon the population. How much money the federal government gives to help the schools are based upon the number of people that are in the city, the or in that area. The hospitals cannot just build on their own. If a group of people want to build a hospital, they have to get permission and a license to build it. The license to build hospitals is based upon population. So if there were not as many people who registered in the census, then it's going to take longer to get the hospital that the community needs. So it is the vehicle by which the federal and the state government passes money back down to us at the city level. So wherever the census department reaches back out to us, actually it's the federal department of commerce. If
Mhm.
they ask for additional information, please do so because it's important to us. I know that now my father came from the Bahamas, so I'm part of that large population of South Florida who have got immigrants in their background. So you're always concerned about the immigration department because we've got relatives who may not have all of their papers. Um, So that is always an issue for us. But at the same token, the information that you provide to the Census Department cannot be used for 72 years. So information that's given today cannot be released for 72 years. So it's unlikely that there's any way that they'll be able to use that information to come after you on a immigration kind of issue. So you can feel safe in communicating with the Department of Commerce.
You know, I did some work with the census this past 2020, and that was the prevailing message that I know that we had to reassure people the fact that giving their information, filling out the census was not going to cause them to be picked up by ICE. Wasn't going to cause them to suffer from that, because that there had been such an atmosphere created where they were afraid. I mean, you think about what was going on at the time. It was pick up, deport, pick up, get rid of. It was all of those things. So it was really a lot more difficult. It took a lot more effort in 2020 to really get people to say, look, we need you to fill out your census. Please do so. Count Jimmy, who's living there in the house behind you, but on the same property, because it was important. And the way that you explained it, we often don't see the impact of the census. We don't recognize the impact of the census until there's a chronic and a crucial need, in which we saw, especially at the beginning of the pandemic. We start seeing hospitals being overflowed, things that they did not have, things that wasn't there. And so in the midst of a pandemic, which was interesting, there we were doing a census, in the midst of the pandemic, it was more of a reason for people to recognize that the census really will determine what your future looks like in the next 10 years and beyond. And so inside of that, I kind of like the way you threw that in, that if possible of a recount, that's all we need, right? A recount of having, because, and I agree with you, because we went back and forth with whether or not, they moved the deadline date a couple of times. We went back and forth whether or not certain things were going to count. So definitely, I think that when, we may have to reboot, reset, reassess it, and decide what we need to do. But I look forward to that day that people will embrace the fact that the census is very important.
Bernard, there in your community, we were talking to you regarding the housing, and you heard Mayor Ken Thurston talk about the resources that were available here in Lauderhill, and certainly in a lot of cities that people that are watching the show. So as it relates to the foreclosing market, what advice can you give to individuals that it relates to that? It's, let's say, because there are people that are, let me say this to you, Mayor Thurston, as well, that there are people that aren't legal, and how do they get the assistance that they need and they're renting?
Well, the documentation which is needed is typically a lease and something which shows that they are delinquent in their obligation. Now, Mr. Jennings could perhaps have documentation to the contrary, but from what I remember seeing in terms of what we asked for, is proof that there's a delinquency and proof that they're leasing. So I don't know that is an issue.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor Thurston. Nice to see you this evening. And the mayor is absolutely correct that it all begins with documentation. If you're going to prove something to your lender, actually, when it comes to the lender and the foreclosure situation, the lender, CARES Act says that the lender can't ask you for proof of a COVID issue. You have to declare that it's an issue, and they accept it because they're under a moratorium. So with the rental is different. To get these funds from your local municipality or from the county, there is a requirement to show proof from an employer, a letter where you were fired, or something to show that you're no longer gainfully employed. That's why you can't pay. And the non-payment that you or unable to make to your landlord is not forgiven because of the moratorium. You still owe the money. So the landlord can definitely, after the moratorium is lifted, along with filing for foreclosure, filing for an eviction from the tenant, they can pursue you for the past rents and possibly get a judgment against you and collect that through a replevin of your bank account, or getting a judgment where they can seize your income tax when you get it.
Wow. So they'll give you a lifeline, a temporary lifeline, so that you can stay in your place, but payday is coming for them. They'll have to
Yeah,
pay.
there is no free lunch because the money's still owed. They've sort of like put everyone in this fictitious suspense, but it's really very hurtful to the tenant and to the landlord. It's a forced problem because the landlord can't move forward to collect because there's no legal ability for him to do so, and the tenant is given this fictitious thing that, oh, you're okay, don't worry about it. But no, you still owe this money. So after you go 5 or 7 months without paying, how do you begin paying again when you still owe the money? So the landlord gets to evict. You leave. You're still on the hook for the money you owe, and the landlord's still fighting with his mortgage company, trying to figure out how he can maintain his property without losing it. And oftentimes, the money collected by landlords is to pay their own mortgage at their own home where they live. Catch 22.
Yeah, I absolutely agree that the forbearance or the delay in making the payments is not necessarily beneficial in the long term, because one day you've got to pay the piper. But the dollars that you get from the CARES Act, which are actual dollars that will pay the landlord or pay your mortgage, is actually reducing what you owe, and it does not have to be paid back. So that's the reason for being certain that you're computer literate and finding out what's available to you, because that will improve your situation in the long run.
In Miami-Dade County, you can call 311 to get information from your cell phone uh, about where you can apply for funds. I'm not sure if there's a number like that in Broward County. Then most local municipalities, like Mayor Thurston's municipality, has a website that you can go, lauderhill.fl.gov. Miami-Dade County is miamidade.gov. And depending where you live, there's assistance to some degree if it hasn't run out. From what I've been reading, I think Broward County as a whole still has a lot of money left over from the CARES Act from the last cycle, as well as so does Dade County. Dade County has around $60 million, and I believe Broward has around $40 million of allocation that they haven't even utilized fully yet.
You're absolutely right. And that 40 million, the county commissioners are now saying that they are going to allocate that toward vaccinations. But I read in the paper on Sunday that under the new CARES Act, which was just passed at the last days of the Trump administration, there's going to be almost 60 there's going to be a large amount of money that's coming to Broward County that they're going to use to help people catch up their mortgage payments, catch up their rent. The only caveat is that the landlord and the tenant, or the owner
Lender.
and the mortgage company, the lender, have to agree to binding arbitration. So they sit down, they work it out, and then the money can be used. And I think the number is $59 million that's coming into Broward County, and they expect the dollars to be here in February. Judge Tudor, who is the chief judge in Broward County, is training people to be arbitrators or
Mediators.
thank you, remediators, for this program and these dollars. So it will be an asset to the tenant, and it's going to be an asset to the property owner.
And actually, Broward County is a little bit ahead of the game. Mayor Geller has spearheaded that in Broward, and in Dade County, Mayor Levine Cava, is working on a program that hopefully I'll be a part of that. We've actually submitted a proposal to them and how to create what's called a conciliatory mediation program, similar to what was going on back during the first, not the pandemic, but the mortgage crisis of the early or the late 1900, 1990s, the late 90s.
89.
Yeah, 89, 90.
Yeah.
So, and that was through the Collins Center and the American Arbitration Association. I participated in both as a mediator, certified mediator by the Florida Supreme Court in both those programs, and helped many homeowners deal with their foreclosure situation. So Dade County's on a move. Broward County's already on the way. Like you said, the administrative judge in Broward has set up that program. They're actually, starting tooling that right now ahead of the funds that are coming in.
Well, it sounds like in the different areas they administer a little different. I know in Palm Beach County, a lot of things are administered county. The county actually takes it, and then there is certain allotments to certain municipalities inside of that. Mm-hmm. Although they've done a lot of work in terms of some of the similar things in helping, people for mortgage and rent assistance like that. They've focused a lot on this end with helping and sustaining small businesses. So a lot of their CARES Act money has gone toward sustaining small businesses and being able to keep them afloat inside of it. And interesting enough, they've had two different rounds that help regular small business and other rounds that actually was geared toward nonprofits in the area inside of that. And that has sustained a lot of people, a lot of businesses so far. But as this pandemic is going on, what's happening, if we're not getting that renewed money or money coming through, there's still a lot of places that are closing their doors. And yet it's still, once again, depends on which end you're on. There are a lot of new businesses that are, believe it or not, that it's opening right in the midst of the pandemic. I patronized today, Black-owned business in Revere Beach, opened up a week ago, and looked like business is moving. But she was able to open that business because of some dollars that the city of Revere Beach got inside of a program that actually assists her in every manner. And so I actually talked with that business owner just briefly today, and I was very impressed. But once again, going back to what we've been saying tonight, it would not have happened had she not stayed with the process, walked through the application, did the things that was required to do so. As a result, to a certain degree, there's a safety net that owner has, at least for the next 6 months.
Well, Dr. Thicklin, you brought something to my memory when you mentioned that this past week, the SBA has opened up an EIDL grant that is available right now as of January 17th, which gives $10,000 in grant funding to small businesses, free money that you don't have to pay back. Mm-hmm. And it's through the CARES Act. To be eligible, the business has to be in operation prior to January 31st, 2020, have less than 300 employees. The business has to be located in a low-income community, and the business has to have suffered at least a 30% reduction in gross receipts during the 8-week period compared to March 2nd through December 31st of this past year, and before March 2nd or in 2019 proper. So those funds are available. You can apply online. It's a very short application. It's in the SBA application portal, and it also opened up more funds for loans. There's a 30-year loan at 3.75% that you get to the SBA, and a 2.75% loan for nonprofits that you have to pay those back. But that legislation opened up on December 31st, and the monies just became available. Mm-hmm. So a lot of small businesses in the area, both Dade and Broward County, can take advantage of it. It's a national program,
Awesome. The EIDL loan, and that is through the SBA.
Yeah. So it's a COVID. It's called the COVID-19 Economic Injury Disaster Loan. So you can Google it, or the website is sba.gov SBA.gov/funding-program. And then people can get that. So I'll say it again. It's SBA.gov/funding-program. And that will take you directly to the loan portal where you fill it out from your cell phone. It's so short, you can actually do it on your cell phone. And then if there's other documentation you may need, then you can, load it up to the portal at a later time, because you can actually save where you are and go back and do it later on. So,
well, Mayor, that cured some of the things there. You don't have to be total computer literate if you can just do something with the cell phone.
yeah.
Well, I'd like to add that there are still dollars available from the first CARES Act. City of Lauderhill still has money available, and so does Broward County. And it's just a matter of reaching out and making the application. So you do have to be in business to say that you lost money.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
That is correct. So if you can show that documentation, then it is possible to get the dollars. There are grant dollars available and there are loan dollars available. But you just got to take the time and be willing to fill out the paperwork. And there are even many bookkeepers and accountants who are willing to help you fill out the documentation.
Absolutely.
Mayor Thurston, let's say we're in the city of Lauderhill, and can we apply for Broward?
Yes, there are.
Even though we live in the city of Lauderhill?
Yes.
And
yes,
what about if you live in the city of Sunrise, or
if you live in
Broward?
Well, the dollars were given to Broward County. Broward County took certain pots of money that it is responsible for distributing throughout all of Broward County.
Gotcha.
There were additional dollars that were given to Sunrise and additional dollars that were given to Lauderhill. Once we have expended those dollars and we're done, then you have to go to the county to get dollars. Now, you can't get dollars from both places, though. You're not able to double dip. So the rationale was that the city government was closest to the people, so let the city try to make it happen first.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully people feel a lot more comfortable coming to City Hall than they would in going downtown to Andrews and Broward Boulevard.
Awesome. Anyone have any closing remarks?
Well, I think it's a wonderful thing that you're doing this program, Dr. Valerie and Dr. Thicklin. And it's a pleasure to be here with you, Mayor Thurston. And if anyone needs assistance in any of these things, you can always contact us at the Biscayne Gardens Chamber of Commerce. That's our website there. And we're happy to assist. Our phone number is 786-529-0014. And don't forget, if there's anybody without a job, Mayor Thurston, if someone's approaching you saying they want you to hire them at the city, we all know that you can't get involved in those types of situations. You have to send them to the manager's office. But if you like to, you can go ahead and give them our chamber website, the Biscayne Gardens Chamber of Commerce.org. We actually have a jobs platform on there powered by Google. So there's jobs from all around the world on our platform that people can get, and you don't have to be in Biscayne Gardens to get the job. So there's jobs all over the place. They go in and fill out a little information. They can look for jobs specific by category of job they're looking for, or specific by the type of job they're looking for. And
also they can contact you regarding modifications. Talk about that.
Right. So if someone wants assistance with a modification of their mortgage, if they're facing foreclosure, I'm considered an expert in the field. I'm certified by HUD, and I'm also certified by the Florida Supreme Court. My number is 786-486-7217. That's 786-486-7217. And there are many programs in place to help you stop a foreclosure if you're a landlord or a homeowner and having an issue. We will contact your mortgage company and do what's called conciliatory mediation with them and get them to either give you a forbearance agreement where you pay a certain amount of money over time to catch up, or a modification of the loan, where maybe you get them to be able to abate the debt and put it to the end of the loan, or possibly get you what's called, if you have an FHA loan, something very, very little people know about, called a partial claim, where HUD will actually give the money to your lender on your behalf, where you don't have to pay that money back until one day when you sell your home or you decide to refinance the home when times are better. So there's
Thank
things
you.
out there to help folks. Just need to be able to walk through it. But right now, I think if you're in a situation when you're a homeowner and you have a looming foreclosure, even if it's not because of COVID, it was prior to COVID, there's a moratorium. And they said they can't do anything till March. So you got a little breather to get it together, get some more income, figure out how you're going to make it happen. Buy that lottery ticket like mine that I bought that they gave away all that money last week, 80 million coming up next week. And maybe you.
I was hoping you hit so I can hook you up after the show.
Okay. Hey, somebody got to win, and you can't win if you don't play. And the money does go towards educating our children in our community. I don't know where all the money's going, but they say it's going to the school board, and we're hoping they put it to good use for our kids, right?
Right.
Thank you so much, Bernard
Yeah.
W. Jennings, for joining us. And, share this. This show has been a blessing. Share it to someone who didn't listen, because you can replay it over and over to get the information, because it's great information. People always want to know where the money is. The money is right there in your city. You just have to go get it. And there's no reason that anyone should be hungry in our city. You don't have to show ID. So even if you're not legal, and that's why you're not going to obtain food, there's no reason for it. Just pull up in your car and they'll put it in the trunk. If you don't have a car, walk up when they're distributing food at some locations, and they'll just hand you the bag. You don't have to fill out any paperwork. And unfortunately, I think that's what's happening to a lot of people, is they're thinking that because they don't have the right documentation, or they're afraid of being deported, that they won't go and get the food so they can feed their families. Go get the food. It's free. We all pay taxes so that you can eat.
You can go to farmshare.org, and on that website, they'll give you a list of everywhere in the state where you can get free food. Farmshare.org. That's a nonprofit organization that is funded by the federal government and other private entities that take the foods from farmers and foods from produce from grocers, and they distribute it for free with the help of community organizations throughout the various counties in the state of Florida. So you can go to farmshare.org and figure out where you can get groceries tomorrow. There's places you can go tomorrow to get groceries in your community.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Any closing remarks, Mayor Thurston?
Well, Dr. Val Parker Hagan, I want to thank you for inviting me tonight. I've had the opportunity to meet Bernard Jennings, who is just a real asset. I've notated his name, and I'm adding it to my directory, because he is just a wealth of information.
Yeah.
And it was a pleasure to see Dr. Thicklin again.
Absolutely.
It was great having the opportunity to chat with your audience. And for anybody who wants to reach out to me, I see that the city's website is on the screen, but let me give you a phone number so you can reach me at City Hall. That's 954-730-3018. And that phone will ring at my desk. I'm happy to help people. I am a servant of the people, so you need to be able to reach out to me. That was 954-730-3018. And if there's any way I can be of assistance to you, I'm just so happy to do so. And
yes, and you are that type of person too. I can tell you that every time I've called you when there was a need or something, you've always stepped up to the plate, and I so appreciate you. Thank you so much for being who you are.
And thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay, Bernard, thank you so much. And I'm sure people will be calling you.
Okay, thank you so much for having me on the program. Invite me back. I'll come again.
Okay, good. Thank you so much. Dr. J, any closing remarks?
Other than that, tremendous guests, terrific guests. They showed us the money, showed us how to find it in our communities, and there's no reason why we should be without.
That is absolutely correct. So hopefully this show has been a blessing to millions of you. Go to your city offices, apply for the funding, go to your local offices and find out where the food distributions are and feed your families. Good night and God bless.
Good night.